Every morning is a new opportunity to take in the news of the day and the challenges of life and try to make sense of it all. Right now, we've got a show that tackles the topics and asks what you think. So get ready to start your day with a bold look at history as it happens. Let's learn, live, and sometimes laugh together. It's the Mark Davis Show on 660 AM. The Answer.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the 9 o'clock hour where we tie a bow around things and try to slog through what we've done and try to get to as many things as we can. More of your calls coming up in a moment at 866-660-5759. I've got things I haven't played for you, things I haven't said yet, hard though that may be to believe. But what I want you to know as we dive into our first segment here in the 9 o'clock hour is that I did not plan this. Here's what I mean. A couple of days ago, we learned about this particular state representative, longtime friend of mine, in fact, who has something he's going to talk to us about education. And I thought, well, that'll be great no matter what's going on. And we'll stop talking about, Kamala at the border. We'll stop talking about, COVID deceptions and then take a little side trip into that. Little did I know that on today's program, we would just be steeped in the flaws of the 1619 Project, wrapped in the importance of fighting so hard for the education of our kids. We are in a season where there are poisonous things that are being shoehorned into various curricula. And I mean, there's an old adage, I'll slaughter it, I'm sure, that if you really want to, take over a country, take over a society, write the textbooks, be in charge of education. There's nothing you can do to solidify the future than what you do about education. And this can be done to the good. If we teach our kids well, we teach them civics, we teach them logic, we teach them history without a jaundiced eye, that is a fantastic thing. But when we poison our history with race hucksters and political bigotry, it does immeasurable harm. So, with the 1619 Project in our heads, a New York Times hatched idea that seeks to see all of American history through the lens of racial grievance, that's bad. What's good? A Texas idea called the 1836 Project. What's 1836? Well, you might say Alamo. You'd be correct about that. And then, of course, what did the Alamo passions lead to? The victory mere weeks later of Sam Houston at San Jacinto and the independence of Texas from Mexico and the birth of the Republic of Texas. And that's 1836. 9 years later, we became a state. So what is the 1836 Project? Well, this education initiative has been signed into law by Governor Abbott, and the gentleman behind it is District 63 out of Flower Mound State Rep, my friend, Tan Parker. Hey, Tan, how you doing?
Hey, Mark. Great to be on the show this morning. Thanks for having me.
It is my great pleasure. Okay, what is, thumbnail it or just sort of encapsulate it for it, and then we'll dig a little deeper. What is the 1836 Project, and what made you think we needed it?
Well, Mark, you described very well what's taking place at the national level, and the fact that, the liberal agenda is not to be able to tell our full history of this state or of this nation. And so it's vitally important that we teach every citizen, not just our children, but every citizen about what is taking place today and what our history is. We have to protect it. If we don't learn from the lessons of history, how can we ever determine how we should move forward? And so the 1836 Project is about preserving all of the history of Texas, the history before 1836, the history of Texas post 1836, all the things that make Texas an exceptional place. We need to make certain that we protect for generations to come. And I also want to stress, we want to tell and teach everything, the good and the bad. Nothing is off the table. But it's important that we do that so that we are able to preserve this incredible tradition that we have in Texas for future generations, Mark.
So as we take a look at the history of our country, the history of our state, obviously it's going to run through some times that we're not as enlightened as we are now, by definition. And that's why we find ourselves, beating on the founding fathers for having owned slaves, Washington and Jefferson. Oh, we have to suddenly stop and obsess over the fact that they owned slaves, as tons of people did at the time of our nation's birth. We got better, we got smarter, we got wiser. So when we take a look at who prepares the 1836 curricula, how does that, is it mostly history? Is it mostly social studies? How will it play out?
Well, absolutely. So what we do in the bill is we put together a panel of 9 great historians that will help put all the history of Texas together, and so that we can have it here in terms of the way that we teach all of our citizens. Now, beyond the classroom, Mark, we're talking about civic education everywhere. So in our public parks, right, and public places and museums and cemeteries and everywhere in Texas, we want to be able to have great civic education. We also, for folks that are coming to Texas, when you get a driver's license now, when you come to Texas, you'll now be able to get information about our history. And not just about the history, but how our history informs the present in terms of the decisions that we make with regard to policy, limited government, maximizing freedom and liberty here in Texas. Those kinds of core principles and values will be taught, so to speak, to everyone that's coming into Texas. So again, the objective is that every Texan, whether or not you've been a Texan for many decades or many generations, your family, or whether or not you're a brand new Texan, you need to get the educational framework that the 1836 Project will provide. And the bottom line is that the reason why, the New York Times and Newsweek and all these liberal entities are attacking the 1836 Project is they want to divide America. As you said earlier, they want to divide America. And this is about bringing us together as Texans. This is about all of the things that bind us together and celebrating those. Yes, we've had terrible things in our history. We've had wonderful things in our history, but we can't pick and choose. We can't go and cancel some part of our history or revise this or that. All of our history needs to be taught. That's what the 1836 Project is all about. And that's why, frankly, the liberal agenda is so concerned what we're doing, because we're going to actually educate Texans broadly.
And no state has a history like ours. I mean, every time somebody goes to Six Flags, they may not even know it. Maybe you're at the stock show and see the grand entry with the actual Six Flags that Texas has existed under: Spain, France, Mexico, Republic of Texas, the United States, and yes, the Confederacy. Those are the Six Flags that have flown over Texas during our amazing history. There's bitter, there's sweet. Appreciating all of it is deeply important. When does this all happen? These historians gathering and planning all this. When does this hit actual classrooms?
Yeah, Mark. So this is actually going to all come together here this fall. The advisory board will come together and they'll issue their report, so to speak, with regard to how all of this should be shared with the public at large. They'll make those recommendations and roll out. So I think we can start seeing this great curriculum and content rolling out early next year, and be something of tremendous benefit, again, to every Texas citizen. So I'm excited about it. And I think that, you said it earlier very well too, Mark, and that is that as a nation, as a state, we're on a path to continuous improvement, right? It's always about continuous improvement. We know how blessed we are to be Texans, how blessed we are to be Americans, but that path of continuous improvement is one that we're all aspiring to from the time of the founding of Texas, the founding of this country. And that's what we're trying to obviously talk about and make sure that we protect for future generations. And it's not just this part of the history, the founding of the state, but what about our economic history? What about all the things that make Texas, Texas? All of those things that are special, we want to incorporate into this amazing history of Texas to protect it for future generations.
District 63, southwestern Denton County. My friend Tan Parker. In our remaining couple of minutes, Tan, I can't have you on the show and not talk about stuff going on. When might we have our maybe first of many, special sessions in the legislature?
Well, Mark, of course, the governor makes that final determination as to when that will take place. Look, everyone's got a different bet at this point, but my assessment is that we probably have something, my guess is probably in August, but certainly we're going to have a special session, of course, sometime probably between mid-September and early October on the topic of redistricting. Doing something in August would be specific to election integrity and some of those other key Republican priority items that we did not get a chance to complete in the regular session.
And I ask everybody the same question: Republican House, Republican Senate, Republican state. How in the world did this not get done by now?
Mark, look, the reality is that we're all extraordinarily frustrated that the Democrats walked away from their responsibilities and broke quorum the final day of the session. That was ridiculous. And I know I share my frustration with so many across the state that are frustrated we didn't get these critical items done at the end of the session. But I can assure you, my friend, we will get them done here shortly here this year. Well,
election integrity, absolutely. Various other things, and redistricting, extremely important. And I just want to make sure that we don't lose in the wash the gender issues, making sure we don't have boys competing against girls in the track meet, and making sure we join that proud list of states that just say no to parents and doctors looking to carve up the privates of our kids in order to achieve some transgender status before they're 18. We have to stop this. Please tell me we will.
Mark, absolutely. I'm 100% committed. I was a joint author on both of those bills in the House. It has to be addressed. This is horrific. It's the abuse of our children. Adults can do whatever they choose to do, but to not protect our children under the age of 18, to me, is ludicrous, and it's something I'm passionate about.